What happens when a lifetime of sacrifice and love goes unappreciated? Ruth has spent years caring for her family, only to be ignored and betrayed by those she loves most. But as she uncovers the truth behind her granddaughter's lies and deceit, Ruth's quiet resolve transforms into a powerful journey of self-discovery, justice, and redemption. The road ahead is long, but the stakes are higher than ever. I often joke that if you stay invisible long enough, you start to believe it yourself. I'm Ruth, 58 years old, living in the small, quiet suburbs of Chicago. The house is modest, but it's mine, or it was. For years, I've been the glue holding things together. My daughter, Michelle, and my granddaughter, Kayla, depend on me for everything: money, care, stability. But none of them see it. Maybe it's because I've always been the one who keeps things running smoothly, that they think I'm a fixture in the background. I don't mind being the silent worker. I never have. It's just who I am. But the longer I do it, the more I disappear. After my divorce, I found myself with no one but my daughter and her family. Michelle is busy with her own life. It's like she forgot I was ever her mother. There's no malice, just indifference. And Kayla? Oh, Kayla. She's 19, rebellious, full of herself, and completely blind to everything I've done for her. She's always been ungrateful, pushing back against everything I try to teach her. It's as if the more I gave, the less they appreciated it. I'm just here, existing. Nothing more, nothing less. But then, something happened. It wasn't much, just a comment. One little thing that stuck with me. I had tried to give Kayla some advice about her future, about choosing a career that would set her up for a good life. She didn't want to hear it. She called me a stubborn old woman who didn't understand anything about today's world. She said I had never built anything. That stung. I could feel my heart break as she said it, but I didn't show it. I just smiled and walked away, telling myself she didn't mean it, but she did. And that's when everything changed. I started thinking about all the years I'd spent in silence, thinking about all the sacrifices I made for this family that never even noticed. I've paid for everything. The bills, the food, the education. It was all me. But none of them ever saw it. Not really. They didn't see me, just what I could provide. It wasn't just the lack of appreciation. It was the betrayal. That feeling had been growing inside me, small at first, then louder, more insistent. Maybe that's the reason I started looking into our finances. After all, I had always kept an eye on the money. I had to. How else would we manage? That's when I saw it. Something was wrong. Money was missing from the account. Large sums that shouldn't have been gone. I felt my heart tighten in my chest, panic rising in my throat. How could this happen? Where did it go? I dug deeper, pulled out every statement, every receipt, every record I could find. And there it was. Kayla had been taking money out of my account, draining it slowly, quietly, buying clothes, electronics, things I never saw her need. I was sick. How could she? How could the girl I had raised, the one I spent years working hard to support, betray me like this? I wanted to scream, to confront her right then and there, but I held back. I couldn't let her see me this way. I couldn't show weakness. But I was done. I was done being invisible. Done being the quiet, obedient matriarch who kept everything together while everyone else took advantage of me. It had to stop. I don't know what I was expecting, but when I confronted Kayla, I never expected this. She denied it at first. She acted shocked, even hurt. She said I was imagining things, that I was too old to understand her needs. She tried to turn the tables, to make me feel guilty for accusing her. But I knew better. This was not just some misunderstanding. This was deliberate. I saw the look in her eyes, the manipulation, the same look she had given me every time she wanted something. And that was it. I decided then, right there in that moment, that I would no longer be her victim. No longer would I allow my kindness and hard work to be taken for granted. But what would I do? What could I do? I didn't know then, but I would figure it out. And Kayla? She would pay for what she had done. Not in a way she would expect. I wasn't interested in revenge, not in the traditional sense, but I would make sure she paid for betraying me. I started making plans, quietly, silently. I wouldn't let her get away with this. No one would. It was time to take control of my life. Time to make sure that, from now on, I was the one who decided what happened. No more being invisible. No more being the silent one. The first step? Taking my money back. Taking back what was mine. what I had worked for, and that was only the beginning. I couldn't let it go. I couldn't just sweep it under the rug like I had so many things before. This wasn't just about the money, although that was the catalyst. It was about the years I had spent taking care of everyone, the sacrifices I had made, and how little I had in return. It was about respect, or the lack of it. How could I have been so blind? How had I allowed myself to be used like that? I knew I had to do something, but the question was what? My gut told me that Kayla's betrayal was only the tip of the iceberg, but I couldn't quite grasp how deep this had all gone. I needed to understand what was happening, to see the whole picture, and so I started digging. I didn't just look at the bank statements anymore. I started going through everything, receipts, emails, and even the bills. Little by little, a picture emerged. The money that Kayla had been siphoning off wasn't just for clothing or new gadgets. There were hundreds of small transactions, gifts for her friends, dinners at fancy restaurants, even a few trips I never knew about. All of it was being paid for by my account, by the money I'd saved for her college education. The thought of it made my stomach turn. At that moment, I realized that Kayla hadn't just been taking from me. She had been living a lie, using me as a safety net while she splurged on her own life. Meanwhile, I'd been working day in and day out to make sure she could go to college, to give her opportunities I never had. But instead of gratitude, she gave me nothing but contempt. I spent hours that night going through the paperwork, and it wasn't until the early morning light began to filter through the curtains that I had a realization. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about something much bigger. It was about power. I had given her power over me by not seeing her for what she truly was. I had allowed her to take from me because somewhere deep inside, I wanted to believe that if I gave enough, if I sacrificed enough, she would see me, value me, maybe even love me. But that wasn't going to happen. Kayla didn't love me. She didn't even respect me. She used me, and I had let her. But not anymore. I wasn't going to let her continue taking from me, not without consequences. I wouldn't let my sacrifices be for nothing. This time, I would make her understand the depth of what she had done. I knew I needed to confront her, but there was something inside me that told me not to do it immediately. No, this time, I wouldn't let my emotions take the lead. I needed to plan. I needed to be smart about this. The next day, I kept my distance. I didn't let my face show anything. I wasn't angry, at least not in the way I had been before. I was cold, calm, and calculating. I went about my day as usual, making sure to take my time. I knew Kayla was waiting for the moment when I would explode. She thought she knew me. She thought she could control me with guilt and manipulation. But that wasn't going to work anymore. Later that afternoon, when Kayla was in her room, I found myself standing in the hallway outside her door. I didn't knock, just waited. I had a decision to make. Would I confront her now, or would I wait for the right moment? I decided to wait. I needed to be certain that she would know exactly what she had done, and that there would be no room for her to deny it. The days passed, and I found myself planning quietly, taking notes and compiling evidence. I could feel my resentment turning into something else. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was a sense of determination. This wasn't just about getting even. This was about reclaiming control of my life. Kayla had taken everything I had given her, my time, my money, my love, and thrown it back in my face. But she had no idea who she was dealing with now. I wasn't going to be her doormat any longer. She thought she could walk all over me, but she was about to find out that I was done. And then, when the time was right, I would confront her. I would tell her everything, all the lies, all the deceit. I would make sure she knew exactly what she had done and how far she had pushed me. But first, I had one more thing to do. One final step before the confrontation. I needed to make sure that the consequences were real, that they would hit her where it hurt the most. I wasn't just going to let her apologize and move on. No, I was going to make sure she paid for what she had done. And so, I began to think bigger. The money I had saved for her future, it would never be hers now. Not after what she'd done. She needed to learn a lesson. And I was going to teach it to her. I was done being invisible. I was done being the one who cleaned up everyone else's mess. Now, it was time for me to take control. As I sat down at the kitchen table, staring at the evidence I had gathered, I felt a sense of power rising within me. I had been a victim for far too long. But not anymore. Now I was in charge. And Kayla? Well, she was about to learn the hard way that you don't get to take advantage of someone forever. The next move was mine, and I wasn't going to make the same mistake twice. It was time to make her pay. I remember that day as if it was yesterday, the day I decided to face Kayla, the day I decided to stop pretending. I had everything I needed: proof, receipts, documents, all the things she couldn't deny. I wasn't just walking into that room to scold her. I was walking in to take back control of my life. The thought made my stomach tighten in both fear and excitement. This wasn't going to be easy, but it was necessary. I waited for the right moment. Kayla was in the living room, her back turned as she scrolled through her phone. I had seen that same posture 100 times, as if the whole world was her stage, and the rest of us were just extras. She didn't hear me walk in, and for a moment, I just stood there, taking it all in. The girl I had poured my life into was nothing but a stranger to me now. "Kayla," I said, my voice steady but low, betraying no emotion. She turned, surprised, like she hadn't expected me to speak. She put her phone down, but I could see the glimmer of irritation in her eyes, like she was already preparing to shut me out. "What is it, Grandma?" Her tone was the same, dismissive, as though this conversation was just another inconvenience for her. "I need to talk to you," I said, my gaze never wavering. "Now." Her eyebrows furrowed, but she didn't argue. She could tell by the look on my face that this was different from the usual back and forth we'd had over the years. This time, there was no hesitation in my eyes, no softness, no love in my voice. "All right," she muttered, standing up. She crossed her arms over her chest, clearly annoyed. "What's the big deal?" I handed her a pile of documents. "These are the bank statements from the last few months. And these," I shoved a few more papers into her hands, "are the receipts for the things you've bought with my money." "It's a little strange, don't you think? Especially since I never gave you permission to spend a dime." Kayla glanced at the papers, then looked up at me with wide, startled eyes. "What the hell is this, Grandma?" She tried to act confused, but there was a shift in her expression. The bravado she had been wearing started to crack. "I'm done being used by you, Kayla," I said quietly, but my words were sharp, cutting through the air like a knife. "I trusted you. I believed in you. I thought you were better than this." My voice was controlled, but inside, the anger was building. It was a rage I had buried for so long that it felt like a flood. Now it was finally breaking through. "But you've been stealing from me, taking what I earned, what I've worked for, and for what? To live a life I never gave you the right to live." Kayla's face paled, and for the first time I saw real fear flash in her eyes. She took a step back, fumbling with the papers I had handed her. "I didn't steal anything. You're overreacting. This is just a mistake, okay? I didn't mean to." "Don't lie to me, Kayla," I interrupted, my voice cold, biting. "I know exactly what you've been doing. You've been taking money out of my account, money I had saved for your future. And then you went further. You've been making purchases, running up debt, all in my name. Do you even care how much damage you've done?" Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She couldn't respond, not with any honesty, because there was nothing she could say to make this right. I watched her, my eyes hardening with each passing second. "I've given you everything. I've worked my entire life to give you a future, a chance at something better than what I had, and you repay me with lies and theft." Kayla opened her mouth again, but the words she tried to form were lost in the weight of her guilt. She couldn't find an excuse, not this time. She had nowhere to hide. "You don't get to do this to me anymore," I continued, each word more deliberate than the last. "You've crossed a line, and now there will be consequences. You won't just get away with this. Not this time." Kayla's face twisted, and she looked like she might break down, but instead, her expression turned defensive. "What do you want from me, huh? You're just going to ruin my life because of some stupid mistake?" She wiped her eyes, but her anger was rising again, and I could tell she was trying to hold it back. "I've been doing all of this because I need help, and you never give me a break. I never get what I want." "Stop," I snapped, the final shred of my patience slipping away. "You don't get to manipulate me anymore, Kayla. You're not a child anymore, and I'm not going to let you play the victim. You've hurt me, and now you'll have to face the consequences." I saw the fear turn into something else, defiance, but it was too late for that now. I wasn't scared of her anymore. "Don't you dare think you can make this right with a couple of empty apologies. You're going to make things right with your actions," I said, my voice shaking with the weight of my resolve. "You're going to work off the money you've taken. Every single cent. I'm not giving you a dime for college anymore. You'll pay me back, and you'll start by doing community service, real work, something that will make you understand what hard work really means. Kayla's jaw clenched. You can't do that, she hissed, her voice breaking with frustration. You can't just make me do something like that. Oh, I can, I said. The calmness in my tone contrasting with the fire I felt inside. And I will. You've stolen from me, and now you're going to learn the value of what you've taken. Kayla's eyes widened, and I could see the realization setting in. There would be no easy way out of this. No more manipulation, no more excuses. This was the beginning of her learning what it meant to truly face the consequences of her actions. I could feel it, the weight lifting from my shoulders. For the first time in years, I wasn't afraid to stand up for myself. I had taken control, and I wasn't backing down. Do you have anything else to say? I asked her. My voice steady, unwavering. Kayla's face softened for a second, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She looked away instead, unwilling to meet my gaze. I knew then that this was the turning point. There was no going back now. This wasn't just about the money. This wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my life, reclaiming my dignity, and that was something I wasn't going to let anyone take from me again. I turned and walked out of the room, feeling stronger than I had in years. Kayla was silent behind me, and for the first time, I didn't feel the need to look back. I was done being invisible, done being the one who cleaned up the messes. The days after the confrontation were a blur. I didn't know what I expected from Kayla, but I sure as hell didn't expect her to stay silent for so long. She didn't apologize. She didn't try to defend herself. She just disappeared. At least, that's how it felt. She avoided me. Michelle, too. It was almost as if they were trying to pretend nothing had happened, like I hadn't just laid bare the truth about everything. I didn't care, though. For the first time in a long while, I didn't care. I was tired of playing the martyr, tired of holding everything together for them while they went on with their lives, never thinking about what it cost me. If they were going to avoid me, then fine. Let them. I wasn't going to beg for their attention anymore, but there was something inside of me, a flicker of doubt that kept nagging at me. What if Kayla was just waiting for me to back down? What if she thought I was bluffing? Would she try to turn this around, make me feel guilty again? I couldn't let that happen. I couldn't give her the chance. So, I did what I had to do next. I took action. I called the lawyer. I knew I didn't want to take this to court. Not yet, at least. But I also knew I wasn't going to let Kayla get away with the theft. No, she needed to learn what responsibility meant. And if that meant the legal system getting involved, then so be it. The lawyer was sympathetic when I explained everything to him. You've got a good case here, Ruth, he said. But we're going to need solid proof, clear evidence. I'd recommend a couple of things, starting with freezing her access to your account, and then moving forward with the legal process if necessary. I was shaking when I hung up the phone. I had never imagined my life would come to this, a point where I was prepared to bring my own granddaughter to justice, but that was where I was now. That was what she had forced me into. The next morning, I took the first step. I went to the bank and made sure to put a hold on all the accounts. It was my money, after all. I wasn't going to let her bleed me dry any longer. It felt good, empowering, to take back that little piece of control. But I also knew it was just the beginning. That night, Kayla finally came to me. She knocked on my door, hesitant at first, like she wasn't sure whether or not I was home. I had been expecting her, honestly. She wasn't going to let this slide. But the look on her face, the guilt mixed with defiance, told me everything I needed to know. She didn't speak right away, just stood there, hands tucked nervously into the pockets of her hoodie. It was almost like she didn't know how to face me. "Grandma, we need to talk," she said finally, her voice flat, not the whiny tone she usually used when she was trying to manipulate me. This was different. She was scared. I didn't say anything at first. I just stood in the doorway, arms crossed, waiting for her to continue. The silence between us was thick, heavy. I could feel her tension, her uncertainty. But she wasn't going to back down. She never did. I'm sorry, she said, the words stumbling out. I didn't mean for it to get out of hand. I was just... She stopped herself, her eyes dropping to the floor. No, I interrupted. You didn't just make a mistake, Kayla. This wasn't a small mistake. You took from me. You used me. You think an apology is going to fix that? She looked up at me then, her eyes wide with confusion. But I didn't want to hurt you. I was just trying to get ahead, trying to survive. Survive? I repeated, my voice hardening. You've been living off of me for years, Kayla. You think you're surviving by taking what's mine? You've been taking advantage of me, and you know it. She bit her lip, clearly struggling to find the right words, but all I saw was the same manipulative girl who had used my kindness for her own gain. Her voice was quiet when she spoke next, and there was a flicker of desperation in her eyes. Please, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm sorry, Grandma. I know I messed up, but please, don't make me do the community service. It's humiliating. I'll do anything else, I swear. I felt a pang in my chest, but it wasn't enough to make me back down. Not anymore. I had given her too many chances, and every time she had taken advantage of my love for her. She thought she could twist me into feeling sorry for her. She thought that I would give in to the same old manipulation. But not this time. You've already humiliated yourself, Kayla, I said, my voice cold and unwavering. You've stolen from me, betrayed me, and now you'll face the consequences. You will do the work. You will learn what it means to truly work for something. I saw her face fall, a flash of anger and hurt crossing her features, but she didn't say anything else. She knew this battle was lost. I could see it in the way her shoulders slumped, the way her eyes welled up with tears she wasn't willing to shed in front of me. I'll make sure the lawyer gets everything he needs to move forward, I added, my words sharp, cutting through the tension in the room. You won't escape this, Kayla. For a moment, there was a silence between us, one that stretched for what felt like an eternity. It wasn't the silence of reconciliation. It was the silence of a broken trust, of a relationship that could never go back to what it once was. Kayla turned, her back to me as she walked away, not saying a word. The door shut behind her with a soft click, and I was left standing there, staring at the empty space where she had stood. I felt something in me shift in that moment. I wasn't sad. I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. It was a strange, almost surreal feeling, but it was real. I wasn't the victim anymore. I had fought for my life, for my peace of mind, and I had won. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had control. I wasn't invisible anymore, and Kayla, she had a long way to go before she could ever begin to understand that. It was done. I had done what I had to do, and now it was time for me to start living for me. The weeks that followed felt strange, like I was floating above everything, detached, but somehow still deeply involved. Kayla had stopped trying to contact me. Michelle, too, had gone quiet, avoiding me more than usual. I could tell she was caught between defending her daughter and realizing the truth. She couldn't have missed the signs. She just hadn't been paying attention. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I kept myself busy. I planned my trip more meticulously, poring over travel books and websites late into the night. This trip, my escape, was no longer just a dream. It was my future. I was going to reclaim my life, piece by piece. But no matter how much I planned, a part of me couldn't shake the sense of unresolved tension. Something in me still wanted Kayla to face what she had done, truly understand the depth of her betrayal. She hadn't even apologized, not once. It was hard not to feel disappointed, but I wasn't going to allow that to derail me anymore. I had done what I could. Now the consequences were hers to face. Then, one afternoon, I received a letter in the mail. It wasn't unexpected. I had already arranged for the legal paperwork, but still, seeing that envelope with my name on it made my stomach flip. The letter was from the lawyer, confirming that Kayla's case had been processed and the court had set her community service hours. The legal system was now in motion, and I felt a strange sense of peace wash over me as I read through the details. She would be working with local organizations, cleaning, serving food at shelters, doing whatever she could to atone for the money she had stolen. But part of me knew it wouldn't be enough. A simple sentence of punishment wouldn't bring back the trust she had shattered. There was no true justice for what she had done to me. She would complete her hours and go on, unchanged. I wasn't sure why that thought bothered me so much. Maybe I wanted more for her, or maybe I was just angry at the whole situation. I sat in the living room that afternoon, staring at the letter in my hands, when Michelle finally reached out. She hadn't come over in days, and I wasn't sure how I felt about it. Maybe she was still struggling to reconcile what had happened, or maybe, like Kayla, she just didn't want to face the truth. I didn't expect her to knock. She just walked in, as though nothing had changed. "Mom," she started, her voice tentative. "Can we talk?" I set the letter down and looked at her. I didn't want to speak, didn't want to invite her in, but I knew I had to. This wasn't going to fix itself without a conversation, no matter how difficult it was. "Come in," I said simply. She stood awkwardly in the doorway for a moment before walking inside. She didn't sit right away, as though unsure of where she stood in my house. There was a heavy silence, but I didn't rush to fill it. I had learned to let silence be its own message. Finally, she sighed, looking me in the eyes. "I don't know how to say this," Michelle began, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it. "But I'm sorry. I should have been paying more attention. I should have been there for you. And I wasn't." I wasn't sure if I was ready to hear her words, if I even wanted to. A part of me wanted to forgive her right away, to let it all slide because she was my daughter, my flesh and blood. But I couldn't. Not this time. "You're right," I said, my voice steady. "You weren't there, for me or for her. I've been doing everything for everyone for years and no one even noticed. And I'm done, Michelle. I'm done." She flinched at my words, but I wasn't going to soften the blow. She had to understand. She had to feel it. "I didn't want to see it," she whispered, lowering her head. "But I see it now. I don't know how to fix it, but I want to. I want to be a better daughter, a better mother to Kayla." Her apology was sincere, but I wasn't sure it was enough. The years of neglect, of her turning a blind eye to what was happening in my life, couldn't just be undone with a few words. My heart softened a little, but I wasn't ready to let go of the hurt. I had to let her sit in this discomfort for a while. Maybe that would help her understand. "You can start by making sure Kayla faces the consequences of her actions," I said, watching her carefully. "She has to work for what she took from me, and I'm not going to let her off the hook just because she's family." Michelle's face tightened, but she nodded. "I know. I will. I'll make sure of it." There was a long silence between us. I could tell she wanted to say more, but she didn't. She had finally come to understand that she couldn't fix things by offering empty words. She would have to show me, prove to me that she was truly sorry. I didn't expect that to happen overnight, but it would happen if she was really committed to it. When she stood up to leave, she looked at me one last time, her face filled with regret. "I'll make this right, Mom. I swear." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. There was nothing left to say. As the door closed behind her, I sat back down in my chair, still staring at the letter in my hands. The next steps were clear. Kayla would serve her community service, and Michelle would figure out what she could do to repair our broken relationship. But me? I was moving forward. No more looking back, and I would finally get what I had worked so hard to earn. Peace. I took a deep breath and turned my attention back to my travel plans. My journey was just beginning, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. No more sacrifices, no more invisibility. It was my time. The first week of my trip arrived faster than I expected. It wasn't a grand departure, no dramatic farewells, no tearful goodbyes. It was simply me packing my things, locking the door behind me, and leaving. I didn't look back, and if I'm being honest, I was relieved. When I arrived at the airport, I wasn't nervous or overwhelmed like I had expected. I was calm, focused. This was the first time in years that I wasn't worried about someone else's needs, someone else's happiness. For the first time, I was making a decision for myself, not based on what anyone else expected of me. I boarded the plane and found my seat by the window. I watched as the city disappeared beneath me, a sea of concrete and memories fading into the distance. I didn't feel sad, and I didn't feel guilty. I felt free, and that freedom felt like a weight lifting off my chest. I didn't even know where I was going first. It didn't matter. I'd always dreamed of seeing the world, but I had always put it off, too busy with work, with life, with everyone else. Now, I was living my dream, and for the first time, I was truly living it for myself. The first stop was Paris. I wandered the streets with no agenda, no schedule. I went to museums, strolled through parks, and sat in cafes for hours with nothing but my thoughts and a cup of coffee. I took in everything, every sight, every sound, every smell, because I could. I didn't have to explain myself or rush to get back to anyone. But as much as I tried to lose myself in the beauty of it all, the thought of my family lingered in the back of my mind. I was still wondering whether Kayla had learned anything from what I'd done, whether she had come to understand the depth of her actions. I wanted to believe that she was beginning to understand the consequences of her behavior, but part of me wasn't so sure. I knew that her community service wasn't going to be a quick fix. She had to face the reality of what she had done. And for that to happen, I knew she needed time, time to grow, time to learn. But was she willing to learn? Or would she just go through the motions? That night, as I sat in my hotel room in Paris, I checked my phone. The screen lit up with messages. None from Kayla. None from Michelle either. It didn't surprise me. I had already prepared myself for the possibility that they would try to avoid me for a while. They were probably still processing everything. There was a message from my lawyer, though. The court had officially set the terms for Kayla's community service. She would have to serve at least 200 hours at local charities, working directly with those less fortunate. There would be no shortcuts, no get-out-of-jail-free cards. The judge had been clear. This wasn't just a slap on the wrist. Kayla needed to understand the gravity of what she had done, and this was part of it. The message confirmed what I had already known. Kayla was going to have to face the consequences, no matter how much she resented me for it. She would have to serve those hours, whether she liked it or not. I closed my eyes, letting out a deep breath. There was a part of me that wanted to reach out to her, to tell her it would be okay, to reassure her that I wasn't trying to ruin her life. But then I realized I couldn't. I couldn't do it for her anymore. She had to take responsibility. She had to make things right on her own. I spent the next few days in Paris, taking in the sights and letting the city change me. Each day felt like I was shedding more of the person I had been, the woman who had given and given, only to be ignored and taken for granted. In Paris, I found a version of myself I hadn't seen in years. I was alive, not just existing, and that feeling, that freedom, was everything I had been looking for. As the days passed, I began to realize something else. I wasn't just escaping the chaos of my family. I was also escaping the expectations I had placed on myself for so long. I had spent my life believing that I needed to take care of everyone, that it was my job to hold things together. But it wasn't. It never had been. It was a burden I had chosen to carry, but one that had nearly crushed me in the process. In Paris, I learned that it was okay to be selfish. It was okay to prioritize my own happiness. I didn't have to answer to anyone anymore. But the more I explored, the more I realized that this journey was about more than just running away from my problems. It was about facing them head on. I wasn't just running from my past, I was confronting it. And Kayla? She was part of that past. I knew I couldn't continue to avoid the truth about her. She had stolen from me, betrayed my trust, and manipulated me for years. But what hurt the most was not the theft. It was the realization that I had allowed her to do it. I had allowed myself to be blind to the damage she was causing, because I wanted to believe that she would eventually change. Maybe she would. Maybe she wouldn't. That wasn't for me to decide. I wasn't going to keep punishing myself for what she had done, but I also wasn't going to forget what had happened. The truth was, Kayla wasn't the only one who needed to change. I did too. I needed to learn how to let go, how to stop being the person who carried everyone's burdens. The next stop on my journey was Rome, and while I was excited